nations locked in a shadow conflict, no official declaration, no battle lines, yet sabotage, assassinations, and cyber warfare shake the Middle East every year. But how did Israel and Iran become silent enemies? And who's really winning this invisible war? Stay till the end, because once you see how deep this goes, you'll never read the news the same way again. In the last few days, missiles have flown between Israel and Iran, each strike adding fuel to a fire that has been burning for decades. The world watches in silence, hoping for a ceasefire, but the truth is, this conflict is more than just missiles and retaliations. It's a fight for survival, a race to control the future of the region, and a battle that threatens to reach far beyond the Middle East. But what is really happening behind the headlines? Why does Israel feel the need to launch missile strikes? And what's driving Iran to respond with their own? It's easy to see this as just another geopolitical dispute. But there's a deeper story at play here, one that goes beyond national borders and political rhetoric. What if I told you that the real reason behind this war isn't just about religion, politics, or land? It's about something far more destructive and inevitable. There's a reason that neither side can back down, and it's a reason that will affect all of us. But before we go deeper into the missiles and the military strategies, there's something almost nobody is talking about. Stay with me. You're about to understand why this conflict has escalated, why diplomacy is crumbling, and how it's shaping a world that's dangerously close to a point of no return. Just don't expect the truth to be as clear-cut as the headlines want you to believe. Imagine waking up every day to the sound of sirens, a constant reminder that your life is not your own. It's being shaped by the decisions of leaders you'll never meet. Meet Ari, an Israeli man in his early 30s. He's not a soldier, not a politician, just an ordinary citizen trying to live his life amidst the chaos. Ari's world has been reduced to a delicate balance of survival, dodging the ever-present threat of missile attacks while holding on to his dreams. Every night, he hugs his children a little tighter, unsure of what tomorrow will bring. On the other side, there's Ali. Ali is in his mid-30s, living in Tehran. Like Ari, he's not a soldier, not a politician. He's a teacher, a husband, and a father. He's seen the destruction and loss that Israel's missile strikes have brought to his people, and yet his government tells him that retaliation is necessary. But Ali's heart doesn't follow politics. It follows his family. He longs for peace, but in a country where every political move is tied to national pride and survival, he is left helpless, watching as the cycle of violence continues. What Ari and Ali both face is the same: a reality where they are mere pawns in a game of power, stuck in the middle of a conflict that neither of them can control. Their daily lives, their very existence, are held hostage by decisions that stretch far beyond their control. But here's where the story takes a deeper turn. While Ari and Ali's personal pain is all too real, it's not the only force shaping their lives. There's something far bigger at play. Something that, in the end, might define whether their families survive or not. But what is it that both of these men don't see yet? What's the one thing that could change everything, if they only understood it? We'll get there in a moment. But first, let's take a closer look at the true cause of this deadly standoff. The problem between Israel and Iran isn't as simple as a fight over land or ideology. At the core of this conflict is a silent error, one that few understand and even fewer are willing to acknowledge. It's a matter of survival, but not in the way the headlines would have you believe. Iran's pursuit of nuclear capabilities has triggered an irreversible chain reaction, one that Israel is determined to stop at all costs. But here's the twist. Israel's own actions are feeding the very fire they're trying to extinguish. Israel is not just targeting nuclear facilities. The missile strikes are a direct message, a warning that Iran's nuclear program cannot be allowed to reach a point of no return. According to Israeli leaders, allowing Iran to develop nuclear weapons isn't just a strategic threat, it's an existential one. For Israel, it's a race against time, a race they fear losing. But while Israel believes they are securing their future, the reality is far more complex. Their actions, instead of deterring Iran, are escalating the situation. But this isn't just a game of military strategy. It's a psychological trap. Both countries locked in a deadly cycle of distrust and retaliation. Iran, claiming their nuclear ambitions are peaceful, views Israel's attacks as an existential threat too. And with every missile launched, the belief that the other side is bent on destruction becomes more ingrained. What's happening here isn't just a war of weapons, it's a war of perception, a deadly feedback loop of aggression and fear. Here's the part no one talks about. Every missile, every strike, only brings both countries closer to disaster. Israel and Iran both believe they are acting in their own self-preservation, but in reality, they are locked in a destructive cycle where both sides continue to feed the enemy's narrative. But why does this matter to the rest of the world? What's the real cost of this escalation? The answer is simple. It's not just their survival that's at stake. It's the stability of the entire region. And yet, there's something even more dangerous lurking behind this conflict. But before we explore that, we need to understand one thing clearly. The problem here isn't just the weapons. It's how both sides are playing a game they can't afford to lose. And the consequences of that game could change everything. The tension between Israel and Iran is not merely a product of political differences. It is a battle that revolves around one of the most dangerous forces in the modern world: nuclear weapons. Both sides are playing with fire, but the stakes couldn't be higher. The reality of a nuclear arms race between these two nations isn't just a hypothetical situation. It's already unfolding before our eyes. The concept is simple. Control the weapon that can destroy everything, or risk being destroyed by it. Israel's fear of Iran acquiring nuclear capabilities is rooted in a history of vulnerability. From the very establishment of the State of Israel, its survival has been defined by the threat of regional powers uniting against it. For Israel, nuclear weapons are not just a deterrent. They are the ultimate line of defense. And as Iran moves closer to nuclear capability, Israel feels the walls closing in. This is not a conflict over land or religion. This is a fight for survival. But here's the deeper problem. Iran's nuclear ambition is fueled by the same desire for security. Iran sees itself as a target, a nation constantly under threat of attack by countries that see its ideology as dangerous. Nuclear weapons, in their eyes, are the great equalizer. It's a twisted form of deterrence. If you won't allow us to exist peacefully, then we will arm ourselves to ensure we are not destroyed. The truth is, the nuclear tension between these two nations is not just about the weapons themselves. It's about control. Control over the narrative of power, control over survival, and control over the future. Each side is locked in a race that neither can afford to lose. It's as if both are in a high-stakes poker game, each holding their cards close, trying to outbluff the other, but the stakes are far more deadly than money or status. But there's one crucial factor that both countries are ignoring in their pursuit of power. And it could be the very thing that changes the course of this conflict. But before we get into that, we need to understand how the fear of losing control can ultimately become the reason both sides spiral into irreparable destruction. It's not just the bombs that will destroy them. It's the fear that pushes them to keep building, to keep escalating, until it's too late to stop. As missiles fall between Israel and Iran, there are two distinct futures unfolding before us. One of them is a path of survival, of some fragile form of peace. The other leads to devastation, a future defined by relentless destruction, loss, and a widening rift between nations that could consume more than just the Middle East. But here's the tragedy. Both Israel and Iran are blindly walking toward the same destructive future, each believing they are on the path to security. Take Israel. They are caught in a trap of their own making, a cycle of escalation that they believe will keep them safe. But what Israel doesn't fully grasp is that every missile strike only reinforces Iran's resolve. Every attack is seen as proof that Israel wants to obliterate them, pushing Iran closer to developing even more deadly weapons. The truth is, Israel's actions are creating the very thing they fear, a nuclear-armed Iran. Their survival instincts are inadvertently sowing the seeds of their own potential demise. The cost of their aggression isn't just in missile strikes or lost lives. It's in the creation of an irreversible trajectory, where peace becomes impossible. Now let's look at Iran. For them, the equation is no different. They believe that they must build nuclear weapons as a defense against the perceived existential threat posed by Israel. Iran sees the weapon as their key to survival, a deterrent against any further aggression. But the price they're paying is high. They're alienating allies, escalating tensions with global powers, and facing the risk of international isolation. While they believe nuclear weapons will grant them power, the reality is, those very weapons could end up making them the target of even greater retaliation. It's a classic case of the more you prepare for defense, the more you prepare for destruction. This contrast, Israel escalating to protect itself, and Iran arming itself to defend its sovereignty, is the heart of the tragedy. Neither side sees the other's point of view, nor do they realize that the true cost of their actions is not just measured in lost lives, but in lost futures. Both nations are trapped in a cycle of destruction, where each act of aggression only deepens their reliance on the very thing they fear: total annihilation. And yet, this isn't the only tragedy. There's something more insidious at play here, something even more dangerous than nuclear weapons or military might. But before we explore that, let's take a moment to understand just how close both sides are to a point of no return. They're locked in a dance, each one waiting for the other to blink, but neither willing to take the first step back. And it's the very unwillingness to de-escalate that may destroy them both. We often think of wars as isolated events, battles between two nations, confined to a region, perhaps affecting a few neighboring countries. But the Israel-Iran conflict is not just a regional issue, it is a microcosm of a larger problem, one that reflects the fragile state of global diplomacy and the existential threat that nuclear weapons pose to the entire planet. While both countries are locked in their own battle for survival, the rest of the world watches with bated breath, realizing that the consequences of this conflict stretch far beyond their borders. The irony of this situation is profound. Israel and Iran are fighting with all their might to secure their future. But in doing so, they are creating a future where their survival is uncertain. The very weapons they are using to defend themselves may become the tools of their own destruction. This is the paradox of the nuclear age. The more we arm ourselves in the name of security, the more we make ourselves vulnerable to annihilation. The world has witnessed this in the past, during the Cold War, when the threat of nuclear war loomed over humanity's head. And we are witnessing it again now, with Israel and Iran at the center of this dangerous dance. But here's the deeper question. How did we get here? How did the world reach a point where two countries, both claiming to act in self-defense, are poised to unleash destruction on a scale the world has never seen? The answer lies in the failure of global diplomacy, in the broken promises, the half-hearted peace talks, and the constant cycle of mistrust between nations. The tragedy is that peace is possible, but it requires more than just leaders negotiating in good faith. It requires a fundamental shift in the way we think about security, about power, and about our future. The global impact of this conflict is already being felt. The international community is divided, with some nations siding with Israel, others with Iran, and many more sitting on the sidelines, unsure of how to act. This lack of unity only compounds the problem. The longer this conflict drags on, the more it erodes the fabric of international cooperation. The more the world chooses sides, the more it risks turning this regional war into a global catastrophe. And yet, there is still a chance to break the cycle. If the world can find the courage to look beyond national interests and embrace a shared vision of peace. But here's where the story takes another unexpected turn. It's not just the leaders of Israel and Iran who have the power to change the course of this conflict. The real power, the real change, comes from the people. The everyday citizens like Ari and Ali. It's easy to think of wars as the result of decisions made by powerful figures, but the truth is, we are all complicit in the world we create. If enough people understand the stakes of this conflict, if enough people demand peace, change is possible. But it's not enough to wait for leaders to act. We, the global citizens, have a role to play in shaping the future. This is where things get complicated. We're not just dealing with a war between two nations. We're dealing with the larger question of how humanity survives in a world where nuclear weapons are no longer a deterrent, but a real threat. The future of Israel and Iran is tied to the future of all of us. If they fail to find peace, we all lose. But if they succeed, it could be the beginning of a new era, one where the global community comes together to prevent further escalation. The question is, will we have the wisdom to take that step before it's too late? While the situation between Israel and Iran may seem distant for many, the reality is that the world is already feeling the ripple effects. The conflict has the potential to destabilize entire regions and disrupt global peace in ways we can't afford to ignore. So what can we as individuals do to help prevent further escalation? How do we, as global citizens, shift the trajectory of a situation that feels far beyond our control? The first step is simple, but it requires a shift in mindset. We must demand more from our leaders. It's not enough to watch from the sidelines as political leaders make decisions that affect millions. In a world that is more interconnected than ever, the actions of one nation can affect the entire global community. While you might feel powerless, the truth is that you have more influence than you realize. The global community must push for diplomatic solutions, support peace organizations, and demand that leaders prioritize dialogue over military action. But there's more. In addition to political pressure, there's the matter of education. Too often conflicts like these are oversimplified, portrayed as nothing more than good versus evil. But the truth is, understanding the complexities of the situation, the historical context, the cultural nuances, the power dynamics, is critical to finding a lasting solution. Take the time to learn, to understand the real issues at stake, and to share that knowledge with others. Knowledge is power, and when people are informed, they can demand real change. Another powerful tool is the economy. While you may not be able to influence government decisions directly, the global economy is more interconnected than ever before. Economies are shaped by the actions of consumers, investors, and businesses. If enough individuals, organizations, and corporations stand against the escalation of violence, their economic power can shift the direction of policy. Supporting businesses and initiatives that prioritize peace, diplomacy, and international cooperation can send a clear message. We will not stand by while the world moves closer to a precipice. But here's where it gets complicated. While diplomacy is critical, it's not enough to simply call for peace. Real peace is not just the absence of war. It's the presence of justice, equity, and understanding. The global community must demand that Israel and Iran not just come to a ceasefire, but that they engage in deep, structural conversations that address the root causes of this conflict. A ceasefire is temporary. A true resolution requires long-term engagement and a commitment to understanding each other's fears, aspirations, and histories. However, there's something deeper to this conversation. Even if the world as a whole demands peace, there's an invisible battle taking place that has nothing to do with international diplomacy or military action. It's a battle that is fought in the hearts and minds of individuals like Ari and Ali, people who, despite their differences, long for the same thing: peace. But they can't achieve it alone. And this is where the true power lies, not in global politics, but in the collective will of people around the world who understand that their survival is linked, that their futures are intertwined. But here's the catch. This kind of transformation doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, effort, and a collective commitment to seeing the humanity in those we view as our enemies. It's the hardest kind of work there is, the work of changing hearts, minds, and ultimately, the course of history. And as daunting as that sounds, the question remains, are we willing to do that work before it's too late? Because the clock is ticking, and the cost of inaction could be far greater than we can imagine. The Israel-Iran conflict is not just a war between two nations. It is a symbol of the dangerous crossroads humanity finds itself at. It is a reminder that our survival, both as individuals and as nations, depends on the choices we make today. As missiles fall and both sides continue to escalate, the real question we need to ask ourselves is, what kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want to be part of the cycle of destruction, or do we want to break free from it? Ari and Ali are not just fictional characters. They represent each and every one of us caught in the crossfire of a world where power and fear dictate the future. They are us. And just like them, we are all affected by the choices that leaders make. The difference is that we still have the power to influence the outcome. Not through weapons, not through force, but through understanding, compassion, and the willingness to demand a better future. The clock is ticking, and every moment counts. But it's not too late. The world still has a chance to avoid the worst-case scenario. If we choose to act, if we choose to demand peace, if we choose to see beyond our own national interests, we can make a difference. The question isn't whether peace is possible. It's whether we have the courage to fight for it. You've made it this far, and that says something. You've stayed with this story, with this reality, longer than most people would. That's a sign that you, too, are ready for change. The world may be on the edge of destruction, but your actions today can still influence what happens tomorrow. So, what will you do? Will you continue watching, waiting for someone else to make a change? Or will you be part of the movement that demands peace, that works for understanding, that refuses to let fear control our future? Share this message with someone who needs to hear it. You may not see the immediate impact, but trust that every conversation, every action toward peace is a step in the right direction. Remember, the real war isn't the one being fought with missiles. It's the one being fought within us all, the fight to choose empathy over fear, understanding over hate, peace over destruction, and the time to choose is now.